right, so we've been going through the character panel, and for the most part, you guys have been formatting text that I provided for you. So obviously you need to know how to put your own text on there, which is obviously just using the type tool, which is going to be this guy right here. And again, it's going to be Quick Key T. So let's open our character panel for a second, and depending on what the last thing you did is, this could be quite a mess. So what I'm going to recommend to you here is, after you have your character panel open, you can go to the drop down here and you can reset character. What that's going to do is reset it to the default settings and wipe all this stuff out. And we could do it also here. If you right click on the options bar, you can reset the tool there as well. So we're just clearing all the settings. All right, so I'm not even going to worry about the character panel. So these are the basics when you work with the type tool. And obviously we jumped further into character formatting by using the character panel, but for the most part, this is where it has some of the basic options where you can choose your font. You can choose if there's a font that you select that has a bold or italic. This one, of course, doesn't. First one I picked. Let's try something else. And there you go. We can pick our font size if we know. We can use the slider, right, to increase the size. Or you can use the drop down here. I like to use this icon. It's a lot easier. This is our anti-alias. It's the smoothness of the letters. We talked about that in the character panel video. And then we have left, center, and right align. So these are actually not in the character panel. They're in the paragraph panel, which is this guy. And there's some other options in here we'll get to in another video. Here's our text color, and then we have some warping features, and then we can actually get to the character panel with this icon. Okay, so there's a couple ways to add text. One is just click your mouse. Don't click and drag, just click. You'll get a blinking cursor wherever you are, and whatever you type is what you're going to get. All right, now if you hit enter, it thinks you're doing like word processing, right? Like a line break. If you're done with the text that you're typing, you could hit the check mark, or instead of pressing enter, do control enter. And control enter will actually finish that like paragraph, so to speak. So now I can click into another section of my canvas, type what I want. And again, if I'm trying to go somewhere else, I can click away from it. You can do the control enter trick that I just showed you. So depending on where you put your cursor, and notice what it's doing in our layers panel, it's generating a new layer. Okay, so I'm going to do a control enter here. All right, so that is the first basic way to add text. And again, we all know that we can go back in here now and we can go to our character panel, or we can go up here and we can size the text, etc. All right. I'm going to take these 3 layers. So I'm just going to shift click the first and the last to get all of them, and I send them to the trash. And let's talk about a different way to add text. So instead of just clicking your mouse, you can actually drag out a box. In other words, you can control the area where the text is going to go. So now when I type, it's going to automatically word wrap within the area that I'm in. If I'm done with it, I can do a control enter to lock it in. And now I can create a different text block here. And again, same idea. It's going to word wrap depending on what I've done. Now, this little icon here is indicating that there's more text that I typed in the box than what fits. Okay, that little icon right at the bottom right-hand corner of my text box. So if I wanted to show, I could either increase that box size, or if I just reduce my font, you can see now it cleared it out. I'm going to control enter to lock it in. All right, so again, there's 2 different ways of controlling how your text goes in there. Also grouped in with the type tool, we have our vertical type tool. We talked a little bit about this when we were doing the character panel. So notice your cursor switches, it flips down, and now when you type, whatever you type goes this way. Now these are just objects, right? So we can control T them. And control T does a number of different things depending on what you're doing, okay? So if I do a control T, depending on which layer I'm on, and I stretch it out, I'm actually increasing the font size. I can actually increase the horizontal scale, the vertical scale, whatever. We can also, so that's by going to any of the corners, okay? If I go from the middle, I'm doing more width. This will do height. If I want to keep things in proportion, I'm going to hit escape. If I want to maintain the proportion, you know what? Let's work with this layer's not the best one to work with. All right, let's work with this layer. All right, so Control T again is going to bring up your transformation handles based on which layer you have selected. So you can change the size here if you want it to be in proportion. Again, hold your Shift key and then it'll stay at the same height and width. You also get, whoops, Control T. If you put your cursor outside the four corners, you will get rotational handles so you can position your text block wherever you want. This point in the middle is basically your pivot point, okay? So we usually don't click on there. So it's rotating around this point. If I move this point over here, it's going to pivot off that point. So it just depends on, what you're trying to do. All right, let's trash these two layers. We're just typing some junk. Let's go back to horizontal type and let's just type some regular text. So whatever. What are you doing? All right, so let's talk about, again, some other types of formatting that we could do here with just a basic text block. All right, so let's go over this icon right here. Oh, let's talk about the color. Pretty self-explanatory, right? So if I want to change the color, all right, the reason it's not changing the color is because my cursor's already blinking after that point, so I'd have to actually select and drag my text. Now I can bring up my color picker and change the color of my text. If I want to lock it in, Control Enter. All right, now let's talk about these icons with our alignment. So if I click here and I'm on left align, it's going to start my letter at that left edge. I'm going to hit escape. This time I'm going to hit the center icon. Whoops. I'm going to click my center icon. Don't worry about what it did to this piece of text. Click somewhere else on your canvas. Look where your cursor is. Now start typing. It's centering the text off of where I first clicked. Okay. And then if I do a right align and I click my mouse over here, all the text is going to be right aligned to the point where my cursor was clicked. All right, and the last icon here that I want to go over in this particular video is our Create Warp Text. So if I click on this icon, I get a Warp Text dialog box. It's going to control whichever layer you're currently on. And we have options here to arc the text, and you've got all kinds of funny things you can play around with here. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. You guys can explore and do all kinds of different weird things to your text. They're kind of fun to play around with. And again, even if it's warp text, notice what it does to our little icon here. Our layer thumbnail now has a little warped look to it, but I can still Control T the object, right? And I can reposition it, I can rotate, I can stretch it out, I can do whatever I want. I can actually, let me show you this other little thing with the warp tool, which is kind of cool. I'm going to go to, which layer is this? Okay, let's do a warp on this guy. And okay, I chose wave. Now, when I go back to the icon here, hold on, why isn't that showing up? Control T. Oops, Control T is bringing up my character panel. All right, why isn't that working? Anyway, I don't know what happened, but anyway, okay, so that is your warp tool. You do have a 3D option. If I know you want to play with it, go ahead and go in there and do it. Sometimes it can crash the computer, so be mindful, especially for those of you that are doing this by remoting in. It does create 3D text, but I'm going to not show that in this video. All right, so those are your basics for your how to add text with your type tool. Again, we worked a little bit backwards by focusing first on the character panel here, but the main options bar with our type tool is usually kind of sufficient for the basics.